everybody. Welcome to the Two Saints podcast show this week with myself, Mark C, and my co-host, Mark H. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, everything's going well. Obviously, it's been a good week. Obviously, I was up at City on Saturday, and very precious point was earned. But as I always say every week, I hope all the Saints supporters out there are taking care of one another, looking after each other, and yeah.
Absolutely right. Totally echo those sentiments. So just to remind you, the ways of accessing the podcast show are these. Just to remind you all, you can contact us via our email address, the Two Saints Podcast Show at outlook.com, for questions or items you'd like to hear in future shows. You can listen to the radio show on Fiesta 95 FM in Southampton and via onlineradiobox.com. Also, the Two Saints Podcast Show is now available via Spotify, Cast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music and Podbean, or via our Facebook page, The Two Saints Show, and our YouTube channel, The Two Saints Podcast Show. Right, welcome back. So, coming up in the first half of the show, we've got the Two Saints Roundtable reviews of Man City 0, Saints 0, and Sheffield United 2, Saints 2. Saints winning 4-2 on penalties. So, we're going to start with the Two Saints Roundtable review of Man City 0, Saints 0. Saints hold champions at the Etihad. Ward-Prowse on mature performance and Hasenhüttl saying we invested a lot. Yeah, whatever they did on the training ground, Mark, certainly paid dividends, didn't it? Because it should have been and could have been 3 points, to be fair. We were a little bit robbed, I felt. But VAR came to our rescue and we were rescued with the fact that obviously the goal that City scored was actually offside, which was quite clear. But what I couldn't fathom is how on earth it took so long to make that decision. If they weren't looking at offside, which was blatantly obvious, according to Joe Tesson when he was commentating, he said it was absolutely blatantly clear. What on earth were they looking for? But it took forever, didn't it? And I think you alluded to the fact that the longer it went on, the more Saints fans were convinced it was going to be given as onside. What on earth?
Yeah, it was definitely that case, mate. I mean, the issue that you have is that when you go to the quote unquote bigger sides, especially when you're away from home in the league, you do get the sense that when a decision like that's being made, especially in the current climate with VAR, the longer that it drags on, like you said, you feel that it's going to get overturned. And of course, the longer it went on, from my own personal point of view, I was getting more and more agitated. I was sat there going, this is going to be the biggest fiddle up, going. And I say that having a bit of previous, having been the 2-2-1 defeats at Man City, one of which was deep in injury time. So, I've seen that side of the coin and how it can kind of work against you when you're at these bigger clubs. But thankfully it was called offside, and it was the correct decision, and peace broke out in the land because I was getting very agitated.
Well, and amazing as
by
well.
the length of time it was taken.
Absolutely.
One thing that I would say, Mark, is that the good thing about the performance on Saturday was the fact that when Saints had the ball, they weren't afraid to go and attack the game. I mean, the good thing was that the fullbacks were making sure that they were getting further forward, and even when, I've got to say that, I mean, even though the biggest criticism for me is that the wingers, can't actually cross the ball. They cross the ball along the ground, but they can't actually cross the ball in the air. But funnily enough, the fullbacks more than make up for that, whether it's, Romain Perraud at the moment or Tino Livramento, or Kyle Walker-Peters, and as we all know now, Kyle Walker-Peters and Liverento, started the game, and they were always making themselves available. So
long may that continue. To be fair.
Yeah, and when we were in possession, like I said, it wasn't like we weren't making use of the ball going forward. Because normally,
I looked at the stats actually, and I think City had 16 shots, and we had 13. But of their 16, only one was on target. We actually had more shots on target than they did. So it shows that we weren't afraid to have a go, and we weren't afraid to give it some when we went forward, and that's great to see. It reminds me of Saints back in the 80s when they used to go out and attack.
Yeah, that's definitely a positive to take, because you know yourself, normally you go somewhere like that and you'll defend stoutly and heroically.
Well, the thing is, Mark, historically, some of the best Saints teams we've had historically have been the ones that have gone out and had a damn good go. The best team we had finished 1982, I think it was, finished second to Liverpool. And that was a team that went out and attacked every game, So, historically, the best Saints teams are always the ones that go out and attack. Well, I feel that way anyway.
Well, they always say that the best form of defence is attack, but
Absolutely.
I think, the problem is in the modern game that you have to be measured in how you go about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
The thing is on the day, they say that, a week's a long time in politics. Well, a week's a long time, obviously, in football, because, Oriol Romeu, by his own admission, would probably say that the previous Saturday, wasn't his greatest game.
Yeah, definitely not his finest hour.
And we all know why that is, because obviously gets a yellow card, and it takes something away from it. He loses his edge because he's had a yellow card. And then, against Manchester City, he turns in a man of the match performance for me. His ball distribution work was second to none. Sometimes people say his passing game, isn't that great.
I'm quite happy to sit here and say that was his best game in the Saints shirt ever.
There was an extensive range of passes, whether it was long or short or cross-field balls even, that, the likes of James Ward-Prowse would have been proud of. So,
in all fairness, Mark, he's my man of the match, to be fair. I haven't had time to reflect on it. He's my man of the match, 100%. He was absolutely everywhere. Probably his best game in a Saints shirt, to be fair. Superb.
Well, I mean, the way I look at it is, I was just proud of the way that they performed, and I think that, personally for me, that's probably our best performance since the 1-1 at St Mary's in February against Chelsea.
I think I'd agree with that, and that obviously, you would have thought that would have given the players great confidence going into the next game we're going to cover, which is obviously the Sheffield United game. Up now with the two Saints roundtable review of Saints versus Sheffield United, which finished 2-2, went to a penalty shootout. Saints win it 4-2. Oriol Romeu with a deciding penalty and 2 saves from Fraser Forster. But Saints threw on penalties in the Carabao Cup. Ralph Hasenhüttl saying it was a difficult cup tie. Yeah, it was certainly a baptism of fire for one particular player that we'll get to, Mark. But I found all in all pretty difficult tie. A lot of former Premier League experience in that Sheffield United team, so certainly not a walkover, although we have had a very good record against Sheffield United. The last 4 games we played them in the Premier League, we obviously beat them each time, but and especially the last one we had, which was a 3-1 win, which was fantastic. But I thought this might be a potential banana skin, and it was difficult, but they got through it, didn't they? But well done, Fraser Forster. Stood tall and gave Saints a massive hand, quite literally, in the penalty shootout.
Yeah, and I think for me, at the end of the day, it was like you said, it wasn't going to be an easy tie.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the exercise was basically to get through it. And I suppose at the end of the day, they did do that. But I've got to question some of the performances, Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it was because he was sort of playing up there on his own, but Brojan, who's come in and been a bit of a revelation for us, certainly in the games that he's played in, looked like he was struggling for me on Tuesday night. So a little bit disappointed with his performance. I'm sure he'll come again. I do think that maybe one of the reasoning was there wasn't anyone up alongside him, because if you actually followed the game, Shea Adams came on later on, and his performance, from my point of view, seemed to pick up from then on.
Yeah, I think he's one of those players that needs a partner with him. Definitely.
So that would be the first thing I would point out, and then we go on to two players. Well, one was non-existent for me. That was Jan Valery, because he is a shadow of the player that he was.
I think Joe Tessem actually
no
said
attack and runs.
No.
No attack and runs.
Yep.
Happy to stay within his segment of the pitch in the right back slot and be totally anonymous the whole game.
It's funny you should say that, because Joe Tessem was doing the silent commentary of Adam Blackmore, said exactly the same thing. He said Jan Valery's quite happy to be out on the right there, just saying, I'm just here. I'm not bothered about doing anything to add anything to the game, to have any sort of input or any sort of impact. He was quite happy to just sit there on the right, as you said, just sat back, quite happy doing it, going through the motions. Joe Tessem said exactly the same thing you've just said, to be fair. So I agree with that. But the one that stood out for me, I think you're going to get to him as well, Ibrahima Diallo, for me, without question, man of the match.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was from my point of view, because obviously Oriel had a bit of a quiet one, probably the exertions from Saturday. And really at the end of the day, in the middle of the park, Ibrahim Diallo had a really good game. And even when he was made to go to the right-hand side when James Ward-Prowse came on, he gave a really good performance. You've got to say that himself and obviously Salisu, both played well. And the thing is that bodes well for this season, because obviously, they had their bed-in period last season. And yes, he played really well. But so I'm going to mention Salisu as well, because obviously they both scored, and it was obviously the first time both of them had scored for the club. So hats off to both of them. And then we move on to the absolute horror show, Mark, but you're not getting away with it. I'm sorry,
it was.
Getting away with it.
No, it was. No, I agree with you. At the end of the day, it was an absolute horror show. All I will say about the player in question is, people said, it was awful, blah, blah. Well, it was, and I agree with them. However, Jan Bednarek's first ever game in the Saints shirt was awful as well. But I think the exception to the rule here is Jan Bednarek went on to prove he's a decent addition to the squad and a great player. I can't say the same for this guy. He looked absolutely awful, and I'm not convinced he's going to cut it. They're saying they've got to go away and work with him. I'll tell you what, they've got an awful lot of work to do. They've really got their work cut out.
Like I said, it's not.
And Mark can tell you who we're talking about.
It's not, it's Mr. Lanko. I mean, it's not the same thing as far as I'm concerned.
That's
mean, the thing is there's a difference between struggling in a position and then struggling in the position, but also somewhat looking like you're off the pace. Positionally, looked like he struggled. We had the situation where Ralph, during the 90 minutes, tried him in a 4, tried him in a 3, tried him to the right, and none of those seemed to work. And
well, the thing is, Mark,
the thing is, I don't care what anybody says. At the end of the day, he had the indignity of having to pull him off because he was having that bad again.
Well, the thing is, it was such a negative impact. He actually ended up putting Oriol Romeu at centre half. Ralph off the back of that said, Oriol Romeu can play some minutes at centre half. No, he really can't. And Ralph, please get that thought out of your head. Romeu's not a centre half. Please don't do that again. But it shows how negative. It shows how negative Lianco was in the fact that he ended up putting Romeo at centre off. That said everything for me. That spoke volumes.
Yeah, I mean,
he was awful.
We're going to come on to that, but obviously, 2-2 and winning 4-2 on penalties, it wasn't really that bad. At the end of the day, like Absolutely. You said, we're talking about a team that have just come down last season, so they do have, quality within their ranks. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we were celebrating that. We thought fantastic. Into the hat for the next round. Nice easy tie. First ball out. Us and Chelsea. Great, fantastic. What a draw that is. Flipping heck. Typical. Absolutely typical. So there you go. That sums up the Two Saints roundtable review of Sheffield United 2, Saints 2. Saints winning 4-2 on penalties, which was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, as I said, into the hat, we've got Chelsea in the next round. So that brings to an end that section of the pod for now. So coming up in the next section of the pod, we've got Saints Club news, other football news, Saints in the press, and Saints transfer gossip. And Two Saints roundtable preview, not a review, of Saints versus Wolves. So we're back straight away.
It's Mark C and Mark H. Mark my word, they're here with everything in the Two Saints show.
Right, welcome back everybody. So Saints Club news. Beating defeat at St Mary's to Burnley. Yeah, carrying on the trend, Mark, aren't they? Can't win for toffee. Finally get to play at St Mary's. Yet again, it's another defeat. I don't even know where you start, to be fair. This is the future of our club. Is it? Blimey, I'm scared.
All I would say is and it kind of shows, because without sort of giving the game away, I mean, we both now know that he's decided to promote the lad that we got from Chelsea in the summer, and he's also promoted Thierry Small, the lad that was signed from Everton.
Yep.
In the summer, and we probably didn't expect to see the lad that was signed from Chelsea so soon into the first team squad. Exactly. So, that's a bit of an indication of, well, we've signed them. We're gonna use them.
Yep.
But anybody else within that B team, right, who were at Saints, or are at Saints before, say, the start of this season, aren't deemed of enough quality for to be able to step into the first team squad. And I'm not surprised, given that the other problem that I have, Mark, is it also tells me that I don't buy what the club were selling in the summer when they were saying, well, we've strengthened the squad, and they said there was greater depth to the squad.
Well,
because here we are, we've had one injury. Well, two injuries if you include sort of someone like a Stuart Armstrong, right? But we've had one injury since sort of they started playing in the Premier League, right? This season, and one injury, and we're already turning around and saying that people who were going to be developed in the B team were moving you to the first team squad. So that tells me already, just with one key injury, since the start of the season, because obviously Stuart Armstrong hasn't played yet. We've already got problems.
Well, the thing is, Mark, as well, you look at the B team, right? Ollie Lancashire was brought in apparently to help the youngsters, blah, blah, blah. He's actually part of the playing staff. And I've got to be honest, I don't think he's made a blind bit of difference. Honestly. I'm sat here scratching my head going, I don't see what the point was of bringing him in, because I don't think he's made a blind bit of difference. I genuinely don't. Results haven't improved.
I think that the difficulty I find is that he's came in to sort of pass on any pearls of wisdom that he might have, right? And that's fine and its place. But the problem is we've been relegated from last season, so we're playing at the second level. We're not playing at the top level here, right? And the pattern is still the same, and I think that's more or less what's deeply concerning about it all. The thing is it didn't help the fact that, Harry Lewis got himself dismissed in this game. I think what will be disappointing from the players' point of view is that, they probably didn't put on as much of a show as what they were hoping for. But again, like I said, it's symptomatic of where the B team are at the minute. I mean, and I would say that it might carry on for a while before we even see any upturn. And when I say a while, I'm not even talking about this season. I'm talking about this season, maybe even going into next season. I mean, it'd be interesting if you get to the bottom of this league, whether there is a relegation to, basically playing park football. But I don't accept. I still go back to the thing that really bugged me. When David Horseman was interviewed in February of this year, and he turned around and he said, "Of course, the results aren't important because what we're here to do is to supply players for the first team squad." Well, I'm sorry, but it is relevant because I don't want people who have played for the B team, and are getting beat every week coming into the first team squad because
it's not good for the first
team. But to my mind, doesn't matter how good a player you are, your confidence is fragile if you're coming off the back of a team that's constantly getting beat every week.
It's breeding a negative mindset, It is. It's breeding a negative mindset, and winning becomes a habit. I look at how successful we were under Nigel Atkins and Ronald Koeman, and that was down to the fact we were winning regularly, and it became a habit. And the problem is for the B team, losing's become a habit.
Yeah.
And it's literally become a habit. Every player that comes in, the results don't change, and then Horseman says the results don't matter. They do matter to me because it has a negative impact. It puts the players in a negative mindset, and I don't want players with a negative mindset in the first team. We've seen the problems it's caused before. So anyway, moving on to the under-18s. Pretty torrid start to their Premier League campaign, losing 4-0 to Nottingham Forest on Saturday, Mark.
Actually, so
tough start.
So the
it was Premier League Cup opener.
The Premier League Cup.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was the first game. You get drawn into sections.
Yeah.
It hasn't been played for 2 seasons because in the lockdown season they didn't play the competition.
Yeah.
But I suppose the good news is that even though it's a defeat, obviously it wasn't in the league, which they're still unbeaten in. So that's the only real positive you would take from that scoreline. And I would say probably that making sure that they go well in the league's probably much more of a priority than the Premier League Cup, to be honest.
Yep, definitely. So, should we move on to Jack Stevens, Mark? News that he's been out. He's going to be out for quite some time. He's got a ruptured tendon in his knee. Ralph Hasenhuttl said 10 to 12 weeks. I actually think it's going to be a lot longer. I mean, I look at Jay Rodriguez when he did his ACL. He's out for 18 months nearly. Fraser Forster was out for quite some time with his knee issues. Will Smallbone's been out for quite a few months with his knee problem. I'm just worried that Jack Stevens is going to be out for quite a while, Mark.
I think you're probably right. I mean, I know that the optimistic reports are saying middle of December, but potentially it could be a lot longer than that. But obviously, I wish him well.
Absolutely.
In his recovery, and hopefully it's a speedy one.
Yeah.
I
do feel for him because credit where it's due. He's had a great start to the season, hasn't he, to be fair?
Yeah, and he much as I can be his biggest critic, I would say that, he's much needed if you look at the standard
Absolutely.
of our new signing at the back, because obviously, Lanko's going to need work. And the injury couldn't have happened at a worse time. As I say, it's it is a blow because again, Mark, just this injury in itself, and I touched on it when we were talking about the B team there, but this injury itself has just exposed again, the lack of depth, and the thing is the whole idea was that in the summer we were bringing in options, okay? So why is it then that we have our manager talking in the press about having a Spanish midfielder play at centre half? See, again, we've been exposed for our lack of.
Yeah. Also, off the back of the fact that our manager was saying, the positions he wanted to fill over the summer were striker, left back or full back, and centre half. Right? He got his striker, he got his full back, nothing at centre half. He said he wanted a number 6 or possibly somebody that could play number 6 and at centre half as well. And got absolutely nothing. And the club say they were supporting him.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, you didn't. You dropped the ball on that one.
I think what I would say is he got all the positions he wanted, because he did get Lanko, who's a centre half, right?
Well, that's a matter of opinion.
But you're right to point out the fact that for the last 3 weeks, every interview that he gave, every opportunity that he had to speak within the press, he had said, I want the number 6. So he was looking for a defense. He made it clear that he was looking for a defensive midfielder that could also play centre half.
Well,
right?
The thing is as well, Mark, they didn't even get anyone on loan.
He didn't get that. So subsequently, you would argue that the board didn't back him as much as they could have done.
Well, the thing is, you look at the other positions as well, loans and whatever have you. We didn't even get a loan in for centre half, and that was doable. I'm scratching my head over that one. I've got to be honest. So yeah. Anyway, I think we'll move on to James Ward-Prowse. The news that Man City made his 100th consecutive Premier League appearance. Absolutely fantastic, and then promptly was rested for the next game.
I know that was a problem for you. It's not necessarily.
No, not necessarily a problem. It's just a shame that his run. It's just a shame that his run came to an end.
But the thing is, his run hasn't really came to an
end.
No, because it was a League Cup game.
Yeah.
And Ralph took probably what was the right decision to rest him, given that James always sets a high standard, right? 100%. So I would never say that James has a poor game, right? Because he always sets the bar.
Yeah.
But what I would say is maybe not since the start of the season, but he has had, let's say, quiet games.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that he hasn't been effective, but I'm just saying he's probably had quieter games, or he may have been given a more specific role by Ralph to execute.
Yeah.
But I tell you what amazed me about this story, Mark, right? Because I know you love when we talk about JWP, right? You love using that word machine, right? The machine word that you love to use when it comes to James Ward-Prowse, right? And I agree. But what really surprised me was, even though 100 consecutive Premier League appearances, he's currently still he's 9th on the list. Now, I wouldn't have thought there would have been that many Premier League players that have played 100 consecutive Premier League games.
Exactly.
But apparently he's only 9th on the list. But don't worry, is one record it won't be long before he's number 1 on the list, which is the important thing.
Well, the thing is as well, you look at his record anyway, and then nobody's going to beat the record he's currently got. The fact that last season, obviously, was the end of last season, he'd actually played every single minute of 2 consecutive Premier League seasons. So, no other player had done that. And also at the moment, in regards to the club, 274 Premier League appearances. The only players who've got more appearances for the club, Klaus Lundgren with 290 and Jason Dodd with 329. So fantastic record.
Yep.
And he did deserve a rest, and he got a rest, but thankfully it wasn't for the Premier League, it was for the League Cup. So we'll give Ralph that one. Probably a good decision, Mark, because he has had a few quiet games this season, as you've said. Anyway, moving on. Great news, everybody. Will Smallbone is back in training. So another boost for the squad.
Yes, and it comes at a time where it's much needed as well, Mark.
Absolutely.
Because because a lot of the time for a club like ours, it's about numbers. And obviously having Will Smallbone back is a good thing. And I wish him well. I just hope that he can come back quickly enough at the level he was previously at.
Oh, you and me both.
Because he's going to be needed within that first team squad.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And who knows, maybe we'll find another winger in Will Smallbone. Anyway, or at least somebody can put a cross in. So anyway, moving on. Donate your unwanted kit at St Mary's. Supporters can donate their unwanted sports kit and equipment at St Mary's next week as part of the BBC's Kit Out the Nation campaign. BBC Radio started its driving campaign in the south, with Saints Foundation welcoming donations to the Southampton area. There'll be a designated drop-off point in the Itchen South concourse at St Mary's near the Saints store at the times below. Monday, 20th of September, 5 to 7 p.m, and Wednesday, 22nd September, 5 till 7. But I'm sure the club will accept kit after those dates, obviously.
That's what I was going to point out, Mark, because obviously the dates are a little bit out. And what I would say to people is if you have kit available, I mean, when they were doing the drives before, because they were doing kits for obviously, poor families or Africa or things like that. But when they were doing this previously before, they used to have big bins within the mega store and around certain parts of the ground. Yeah. So I would still imagine that even though, there's specific dates with the article, the club would still be accepting, shirts and shorts and whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you're not sure, obviously contact the club.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, Ralph Hassanul saying they're going to continue to work with Yanko. Well, I wish you the best of luck, Ralph, because I think you got your work cut out for you there.
Well, all I'm going to say, Mark, is that, and I hope this actually happens, because I'm sorry, but I think that there's real work needed there. What I would say is this: I'm not expecting, and I hope the club aren't expecting, to throw him back in at the deep end for at least another 2 to 3 months, right? So that they can work on every facet of his game and make sure that he's up to speed, because, obviously it was Ralph's decision. I don't see him in training, but after Tuesday night, I would say he wasn't ready. The difference to that would be that was a League Cup tie, right? And there'd be a hell of a difference to throwing him into a Premier League game. So, like I said, they've called up the lad that we've bought from Chelsea into the first team squad, and Thierry Small. To be fair, those are the only two options the club really had to call up into the first team squad. But I'm glad they've done it. Young Simeon, is the lad from Chelsea. And basically Darnell Simeon. Basically, the two of them had to be called up because there were no other options, and Blanco just needs the time to sort out his game, kind of develop his game, but this idea that he's not far off of playing a game for Saints, I mean, I don't see that. I really don't see that. And obviously, I'm not having a go at Ralph, but obviously he sees him in training. He must have thought he's of a good enough standard to play in the League Cup.
Yeah.
But you would ask yourself, there's no way surely you would throw him into a Premier League tie.
Well, in all fairness, Mark, I would have looked at the lineup and thought, oh, Ollie McBurney, the guy's a bit of a handful, Premier League experience, which Yanko doesn't have. I think I'm going to put Jan Bednarek in instead. That's what I would have done. But I'm not Ralph. As you say, we don't know what he sees in training.
Yeah, exactly. But all I'm suggesting, Mark, is that it will be hopefully it should be some time before we see him again in a Saints shirt.
Absolutely. So moving on to the Carabao Cup, Saints obviously winning against Sheffield United. You think, yeah, brilliant. Let's have a home tie. Let's have a nice, easy one. First ball out, Chelsea.
Yeah, so basically it was the first tie. Obviously, yeah, it's daunting, mate, to be honest with you. I don't envy Ralph on this one because it's going to be difficult. Given that, you know, we're already seeing a little bit of cracks within the squad in terms of, you know, having one or two key injuries. And the league's the bread and butter. What do you do? Because we're away from home, do we surrender this tie already? I'm not sure how he's going to play it, but
I'm going to put this out there, Mark. Right, grab it by the scruff of the neck, put out the strongest team you can, and have a damn good go at it. Because I tell you what, it's the best chance we got for some silverware.
Oh yeah, no, and I'm sure that Ralph will be prudent and he'll try and do that with the resources that he's got. But the thing was, mate, it was disappointing from the fact that sorry people, right. But what I would say is it was disappointing from the fact that Saints in cup competitions, you know, certainly over the last 4 or 5 seasons, you know, home tie, any chance of a home tie exactly. Anytime soon, you know?
Yeah.
And plus the thing is like, you know, we're playing them on the 2nd of October. I'm not sure when these ties are meant to be played.
Right,
but
so the tie is actually scheduled for the week of the 25th of October, and Chelsea have got about 4 or 5 games that week. Saints have got 1.
Yeah, so, well, let's hope that puts us in good stead and Chelsea are completely knackered. But given the depth of their squad, Mark, yeah. I don't think it really matters.
I don't think it has any impact. I don't think it has the slightest impact whatsoever.
You know,
they're going to be as tough as us because they always are.
I'd go as far as to say Chelsea could put out their B team, and I don't mean their international players in the B team, but their B team.
We normally get
their youngsters. They're homegrown youngsters, and they'd still give us a game.
Well, in all fairness, Mark, I mean, based on the people we've got in from Chelsea, I'd agree with that. The other thing is as well, let's just hope that, you know, we have that one game a season where we spring a bit of a shock or a bit of a surprise. So let's hope this is the game where it happens.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
No, 100%.
So anyway, moving on to...
So Mark, by process of elimination, you know, the listeners need not panic because... Mark says we're heading to the last game.
Well, I didn't actually say that, but thanks for putting me right on the spot there, Mark. Under no pressure whatsoever now for Saints to get that result. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so any complaints about that, refer them to Mark Harper at 2 Saints Show. Right, anyway, refund process for Man United game is now complete, everybody. So those supporters that attended the game have now had their refund actioned. Just a note of caution, if you are a season ticket holder, you'll probably get about £21 roughly for your ticket for that day, due to obviously the fact that they take into consideration what the cost of your season ticket is and the amount of discount you get for your season ticket. So they work out what each game costs you, and that's the percentage you get back. So it works out about 20 odd quid, I think, if you're a season ticket holder. Obviously, if you're one of those people that brought a ticket at the full price, you're likely to get a refund about 42 quid probably. So don't be surprised if you don't get what you think you're getting, because it will be, because they've taken into account how much your season ticket is. It's all a bit complicated, everyone. If you're not sure, look it up on the website, obviously.
As I say, all you do is you take how much your season ticket is, and then just divide that by 19, and hopefully you should work out basically what you're due back from the football club. The other thing that I would want to point out to people is that obviously you can use, you know, your refund against any SFC products, but if you actually want the money back, you're going to have to wait till the end of the season before you'll get it back.
Absolutely. So, moves on to the next article. This is great. You're going to love this, Martin. Everyone else is going to love this. So, everybody, there's a very good fixture coming up, and a certain Saints player is due to make his return. Okay, brace yourselves. The game versus Aston Villa has been selected for television in November. The return of Danny Ings, get this, everybody, it's scheduled for fireworks night, November the 5th. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Fireworks guaranteed, Mark.
Totally. And you know, we all know what we'll be expecting that evening. I'll be interested to see if Danny Ings actually, you know, turns up fit for the Villa team. But
yeah, I'm wondering if he'll do a Lallana, to be fair.
But it you know, it's on TV. You do wonder whether they've deliberately picked this date, you know. But yeah, I mean, it'll be an interesting night, you know, interesting TV change there. And no doubt Danny will be getting this for a fair amount to stick. You know, and some supporters, maybe even including myself, would say that it's kind of a little bit justified.
Yep, absolutely right.
But moving on.
Yeah, I think something's going to come back and bite him in the backside. So anyway, join the host family program. So the club are looking for local families to put up academy players, so provide them with bed and board, as they say. So help with probably laundry and food and somewhere to sleep, basically. So yeah, if you want to get involved in that, you obviously can contact the club via the hostfamilies@saintsfc.co.uk email. So that's obviously, if you consider joining the host family program, and can offer sole use of a bedroom, adequate storage and bathroom facilities to academy players. Find out more by contacting the club on that website, on that email address. So yeah, good to see that program in effect again, Mark, because I know some of the youngsters years ago, under Dave Merrington's tutelage, were obviously out at local families, weren't they?
I mean, the thing to remember, and I'm going to bring it slightly more up to date than that, Mark, but the thing to remember is that, you know, of recent times, I know for a fact that a lot of the Saints players kept in contact with their host families and things like that there. Namely the likes of Gareth Bale, Van Darren, people like that there. They actually, you know, have stayed in contact with the host families in Southampton. So it's, you know, it's a worthwhile thing, and you know, as I say, you know, the players end up feeling as if they're part of the family for the duration that they're there. So, you know, if you're interested in doing it, obviously have a look on the website or contact the appropriate people about it.
Definitely. So moving on to the last story, Saints duo started Northern Ireland win. I know Mark will be really happy about this, being a Northern Irishman. So Northern Ireland ladies win at Windsor Park, first time in 9 years. But it's Laura Rafferty and Kiera Watlin both featured, Mark, which is great for Saints.
Yeah, they did.
Great for Northern Ireland.
So they were playing Latvia at Windsor Park, and I think it's the first time for a long time that they got to play at the National Stadium as well, which I think is a bit of a shame, because I personally think that, you know, they should be playing there, if not every international, you know, the majority of internationals that they play. I can understand sometimes that you take it around the country, but yeah, there should be more fixtures being played in the women's game at the National Stadium. You know, the thing is it was good all round week. We had Laura Rafferty actually started the game for Northern Ireland against Latvia, and Kiera Watlin came on as an 84th minute substitute. So obviously they enjoyed their 4-0 win on Tuesday night. But I just wanted to say that all round it was really, really good for the rest of the UK teams. Scotland, they had resounding win. Wales won away 1-0. And of course, the crown and glory was the fact that England won at St Mary's on Friday night 8-0. And also they won away, and they won 11-0 away. What I was going to say was, very quickly, was Rachel Daly actually scored on Tuesday night, and she just lost her father. Obviously, she dedicated her goal to, you know, her dad. But yes, so it was an interesting couple of rounds of fixtures for the World Cup qualifying. But everybody at the minute looks set to maybe make it. So it might be interesting to follow that for the rest of the qualifying campaign.
Absolutely right. So that rounds up that section very nicely, Mark. Thank you very much. So we'll end that there, and we'll come back in a moment after a very short break and do other football news.
It's the Two Marks, C&H, on the Two Saint Show, Fiesta 95 FM.
Welcome back, everybody. So, other football news, and we start with Jimmy Greaves. And this was from Phil McNulty, the chief football writer. One of football's most popular and enduring figures. Jimmy Greaves, who's died aged 81, will be remembered as a prodigy, pioneer, and pundit, as well as one of the greatest natural goal scorers English football has ever produced. His glittering career at club level with Chelsea, AC Milan, Tottenham Hotspur and West Ham was matched by his feats for England, as he remains fourth in the list of all-time goal scorers behind Wayne Rooney, Sir Bobby Charlton and Gary Lineker, with 44 goals in 57 games. Despite the stellar record, he will be best remembered at international level for the crushing disappointment of missing England's 1966 World Cup final win over West Germany at Wembley after failing to regain his place from Sir Geoff Hurst following an injury. Hurst went on to score a hat-trick in England's 4-2 win. After retiring from the game and overcoming alcoholism, Greaves forged a hugely successful broadcasting career that cemented his status as one of the game's most popular and enduring figures. Greaves already had a reputation as a special talent as one of Drake's ducklings at Chelsea, the name given to manager Ted Drake's group of gifted youngsters in response to Man United's Busby Babes. He made his debut as a 17-year-old in August 1957, scoring against Spurs at White Hart Lane. He may be best remembered for his feats at Spurs, but his name is still fondly recalled at Chelsea after scoring 124 goals in just 4 years at Stamford Bridge. His natural speed, poise and killer instinct in and around the penalty area, breaking records. In 1960, aged 20 years and 290 days, he became the youngest player to score 100 league goals as his feats brought him to Europe's attention. The young Greaves was one of English football's early exports when he left Chelsea for Italy and AC Milan in June 1961. But it was a move he made reluctantly and briefly, scoring 9 goals in 14 games before returning to London just 5 months later. Even in that short stint, he still demonstrated his class. In an Italian league dominated by the Catenaccio door-bolt defensive system, Greaves proved he could still pick the locks with expertise, scoring goals even in the face of physical punishment. He later said, "I always felt I went to Milan a boy and came back a man thanks to all the physical treatment I withstood from their defenders. Scoring goals anywhere was never a problem, but Greaves felt stifled under the austere regime of Milan's new head coach Nerio Rocco, who banned sex and alcohol for 3 days before matches. Greaves could not wait to return when the San Siro Giants accepted bids of 96,500 from Chelsea and Spurs. Greaves was on his way to Spurs in December 1961 after the League and FA Cup double winners eventually outbid Chelsea with an offer of £99,999. Manager Bill Nicholson declining to pay the last pound because he didn't want the striker to be burdened with the tag of being England's first £100,000 footballer. It was worth every penny as Greaves' deeds wrote him into White Hart Lane legend, scoring a record 266 goals in 379 games in all competitions for the club. He won the FA Cup twice at Spurs, scoring in a 3-1 win over Burnley in 1962 and playing in the 2-1 win against Chelsea in 1967. He demonstrated his quality on the wider stage as Spurs won the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1963, scoring twice as they beat Atletico Madrid 5-1 in the final in Rotterdam. In an era renowned for hard men such as Leeds United's Norman Hunter, Ron Chopper Harris at Chelsea, and the Anfield Iron Tommy Smith, Greaves mixed physical courage and glorious goal-scoring nous that made him a striker of undisputed world class. He scored 220 goals in a 9-year career at Spurs, taking in 331 appearances before leaving for West Ham in a deal involving Martin Peters that was valued at £200,000. He made his England debut in 1959 and played in all 4 games in 1962 World Cup in Chile, before they lost in the quarter-final to Brazil. Despite his magnificent England career, which included a record 6 hat-tricks, Greaves will also be defined as an international context as the man who missed the 1966 World Cup final. He suffered a leg wound that needed 14 stitches after a challenge by France's Joseph Bonnell in the last group game at Wembley, allowing Hurst to come in and make history with that final hat-trick, as the single-minded manager Sir Alf Ramsey refused to alter a winning team. Reason initially didn't receive a World Cup winners medal because only the 11 who played at Wembley were eligible. However, he was finally presented with one along with other squad members, backroom staff and surviving families at a Downing Street ceremony in June 2009 after FIFA changed the rules. He later sold it at a sports memorabilia auction in London for £44,000. So yeah, Jimmy Greaves, much loved, much wanted by everybody, loved pundit, and a real sad miss for everyone, Mark. Best wishes go out to his friends, family, and everyone connected with him.
The thing is that Jimmy Greaves, for me, really, when you look at his record, it's above anybody else when it comes to goal scoring, mate. I mean, I'll just give you a few stats here. So 44 goals in 57 games. I don't think anybody has a ratio like that. That's ever played for England, in terms of goal scoring. Also, he holds the record for the most goals in the English top flight with 357. And he scored, like you said, he scored 266 goals for Tottenham in 379 games. I mean, that's some ratio. It really is some ratio, mate.
Absolutely.
And, the other thing that I would say is 41 goals in the 60-61 season. That remains a record for Chelsea. And he also holds the record for Spurs, which he achieved in the 62-63 season, where he scored 37 goals. So it's just a phenomenal striker.
Absolutely. 100%.
And, like you said, my thoughts go out to his family and his friends.
Absolutely right. So the other football news stories, starting in the Premier League, I'm going to hand it all over to Mark, and he's going to whiz through them for you.
I am indeed.
Mark, 11 stories to get through.
I am indeed. So basically, we start with Sean Dyche, and he's extended his 9-year spell at Burnley by signing a new 4-year contract. So basically, with that, I would imagine that we're going to see him overachieve yet again for another 4 years for Burnley and do his job of basically keeping them in the Premier League and even trying to strive for, the European spot, because they did that 1 year as well. So at the end of the day, full credit to Sean Dyche, and must be one of the longest serving managers now in the league, because that'll take him up to 13 years. Anyway, moving on. Next up, we have Wolves are going to become the first UK football club to launch their own record label. Obviously, I'm quite interested in this because my two interests combines my two interests of football and music. And yeah, it would just be interesting to see if this turns into a good financial venture and whether a few other clubs may follow suit. Maybe they might look at sort of signing up a few local musicians or talented singers and sort of promote them that way. Who knows? But I'll keep an eye on it. It certainly is one of the more interesting stories this week in football. Then we move on to Dan James. So Dan James obviously recently moved from Manchester United to Leeds, and basically he made the decision after becoming a dad on the same day to drive down to London and play for Leeds that night in the League Cup against Fulham, which Leeds then went on to win. But it just goes to show that, there's some dads within football, that may decide that they want to stay with their partner or whatever. Dan James obviously stayed for the birth of his son and then promptly dashed down to London to play for Leeds in this League Cup game. Also, one of the interesting stories about this is the fact that Dan James' newly born son also shares, obviously a very famous birthday with one of the hosts of this podcast, namely myself. So, well done, Dan, and hopefully, you'll have loads of nappy changes to do and all the rest of it.
Absolutely.
Moving swiftly on, next article up is, we have the Australian referee who has decided to come across to the Premier League. Basically, Jared Gillett, his name is, and he's come across to the Premier League having finished in top flight Australian football in 2019. So he's now made the transition across. Obviously, very interested to see how he translates here. It would already seem that the Premier League bosses have had a bit of influence on him. Just obviously he's the first sort of overseas referee, to come over. Obviously, the Premier League's been trying to encourage more referees from other countries to come over and try their hand.
Premier League. One of the positives with him, Mark. One of the positives with him that I can tell everyone about is the fact that they've used VAR quite extensively in Australia, and he's one of those that seems to manage it quite even-handedly and seems to do quite well with it. So hopefully that stands him in good stead. I
mean, the thing is like, we'll just have to wait and see how he is as an official. You've got to give it, I'd say, 20 games before you can make any sort of judgment call.
It's also interesting, Mark. It's also interesting in Australia, he was actually mic'd up, so you could actually hear the discussions regarding VAR with him and the people that were doing it, and you won't get that in the Premier League.
I don't necessarily think that that's necessarily a good thing, though, because...
Well, no, I actually found it was when he was doing it in Australia, but I don't think that would work in the Premier League. It won't happen.
No, I don't neither, because yesterday we had an example of that where Michael Antonio had challenged the Leeds goalkeeper for a ball. I didn't actually see anything wrong with it, but obviously the Leeds fans felt that they'd been, unjustly not given, a free kick or not a free kick, but a yellow card given to Michael Antonio. And obviously that's the problem about showing back incidents in VAR, because they're not actually meant to do it in the stadium. So why it happened at Elland Road yesterday is beyond me. But anyway, moving swiftly on. We have basically Premier League and Championship clubs have been invited to trial safe standing. So standing is coming back to football, which I think is good news. Basically, they have till the 6th of October to submit an application to the Sports Ground Safety Authority. And then if it's approved, then the standing areas will be allowed from the 1st of January next year.
Well, we've already got standard at St Mary's at Northam, so just make it safer. Job done.
So good news. But and then we move on to Marco Alonso, which I don't really get this. So his plan is to point to a badge that he's going to be wearing rather than take the knee. Well, I'm sorry, but if you take the knee, people can see that you're taking the knee. And I'm not sure pointing to a badge has any sort of desired effect whatsoever. The thing is yes. So, what I would say is it doesn't add up for me. And, if you're taking the knee, people can see that you're taking the knee in support. Whereas if you're pointing at a badge, it doesn't really work. But anyway, each to their own. That's what he's chosen to do. Moving on from there. So the next article is Derby County have entered administration and have been deducted 12 points. Surprise, surprise. And because of what happened last season in the general skullduggery that's kind of gone on with Derby and the financial mismanagement, really, of the club. You know, I've said before, I have a degree of sympathy for the supporters, but that's kind of where it stops, because I kind of think Derby's getting what they deserve and what really should have happened last season. Hence, you have the likes of Wickham and Sheffield Wednesday both looking to take legal action, because obviously both clubs were relegated last season. So I have a feeling that this may rumble on for a while. Basically, we'll see what happens. Absolutely. But anyway, some good news for Saints fans following our discussion of, well, I don't know whether it was last week or 2 weeks ago, but Steve Cooper has been appointed the Nottingham Forest boss after themselves and Swansea City agreed a compensation fee. The other thing I would say, without spoiling anything too much, you know, the good thing for him is he didn't manage to get off to a winning start with Forest, but he did manage to salvage a point yesterday. So, you know, I'll watch with interest to see what he can do for Nottingham Forest, because they are in a mess, to be fair, at the moment, really. And it's a bit sad to see it, given that they're previous winners of, you know, the First Division and the European Cup. Anyway, moving swiftly on. So these three articles I'm going to try and cover quite quickly, because it's all relative to the same thing. FIFA are basically holding a summit to discuss the international match calendar. Now, this to me is all to do with the fact that they're looking to basically have a World Cup every 2 years. FIFA still want to carry on with it. And I think it's more to do with monies and stuff like that there, but it's also to do with they conducted a poll. Most supporters, albeit young supporters or armchair supporters, had basically turned around and said that, you know, they wanted the World Cup every 2 years. To me, and obviously the market's a farcical situation.
It would devalue the competition.
There's already way too much football, to my mind, on the TV. Anyway, but just linked in with that. Obviously, we've had UEFA, the head of UEFA, come out and say that FIFA, when it comes to this biennial World Cup, FIFA should stop the promotional campaigns and consult with members. So effectively, UEFA are calling for a vote. UEFA have already voted down the idea of there being a World Cup every 2 years. And basically, they're calling on FIFA to basically ballot their members and abide by whatever decision the members make, which I kind of agree with. It's called democracy, and funnily enough, it's worked for centuries. So let's see what happens there. And then finally, we have the report that the Premier League is next season, obviously, will have a mid-season 7-week break to accommodate the World Cup being played in Qatar. So it's basically being reported that from the weekend of November the 12th to the 26th of December, so Boxing Day, there basically will be no fixtures during that period, because preparation for the World Cup and then the World Cup itself. And because of that, it will mean that the next season will start on the 6th of August and it will finish a week later than normal on the 20th of May.
Okay.
And that concludes your other football news.
Thanks very much, Mark. So at that point, we're going to take a very short break. And when we come back, we're going to do Saints in the Press and Saints Transfer Gossip.
Fiesta 95 FM, the Two Saints Show.
Right, welcome back, everyone. So, Saints in the Press and Saints Transfer Gossip. Ralph Hasenhüttl says Romeu can play some minutes at centre-back for Saints. No, he can't, Ralph. Get that idea out of your head straight away. No, just no. Just no.
The thing is, have we been here before?
Yes, we have.
You know, I remember whenever he first came, and he said that he wanted a situation where players could play multiple positions on the pitch. In theory, yes, okay, I can see why you would want that, but at the end of the day, you know, most players are basically, it's one specific position, and that's kind of it on the pitch. You maybe might be able to broaden that out a little bit if they're, say, operating down the left side or operating down the right side. I mean, the thing is that the idea, I've got to say, haven't even said that. I mean, you know, we've got Moussa Djenepo, and Ralph turned around and said he could play at left back, you know, and obviously we've found out twice now that he can't play at left back. So, you know, the thing is why would you want to play Oriol Romeu in a position that, okay, might be able to do a little bit of a stopgap role, but surely you wouldn't want to play 90 minutes there, and you're taking him away from his most productive role, which is basically being a combative in the middle of the court.
People say football is a very simple game, and it is. It's very simple. Round pegs fit in round holes. Square pegs don't fit.
Here's a question for you, Mark. Do modern coaches stroke managers overcomplicate?
100%. 100%.
Just wanted to ask you that, really.
Football is complicated.
There are times whenever I think they make the beautiful game look a lot more difficult.
I'll be honest, Mark. As you know, I've done some minimal FA stuff. As you know, I've done some minimal courses. One of them was an FA Playmaker one, which is about the way the game's played and stuff like that. You know, coaching and whatever have you. And the simplest things work, the simplest methods work, and the simplest systems work. Saints have always played quite a simple system, but it's worked effectively. I look at the systems that Laurie McMenemy used when he was manager. It was a simple system, but it worked. So, yeah, I totally think it's overcomplicated these days. 100%.
Anyway, moving on.
So, yeah, for me, it's just, don't complicate it. Don't play him at centre-half, Ralph. It's not going to happen. So, Ralph Hasenhüttl was explaining the decision to end James Ward-Prowse's remarkable run of starts. Well, it was the League Cup. We'll let you off.
I mean, the thing is for me would be, if you read the article, it doesn't actually explain why Ralph decided that, you know, well, all it says is we could feel his importance in the second half when he came on, but all I would say about that is that, you know, like I said earlier in the pod, I think it's not. I don't think it was necessarily a bad decision that he didn't play on Tuesday night, and I hope that, you know, we reap the benefits of that come Sunday, mate. Genuinely, really hope that we reap the benefits come Sunday.
Basically, what actually happened was there was a conversation about resting James Ward-Prowse, and Ralph actually said it was far ago he didn't start. I was a little bit thinking about Oriol Prowse. I wanted Oriol Romeu on the pitch because he helps Yanko a little bit with his language. I thought this was more important, and that's the reason why I rested Ward-Prowse.
Well, some of us would argue that it's slightly backfired, given Yanko's performance.
Oh, dear God. So anyway, moving on to the next article. Penalty king Fraser Forster gave Saints a big hand against Sheffield United. Yeah, he certainly did. Twice.
Yeah, mate, did he? Brilliant. I mean, the one thing that you would say, and you know, I'd like to see him play the odd league game as well. But the thing is
to be fair.
You know, basically, right? If you know, and obviously he's going to be playing in all the cup games. And this is one of the good things for Saints. You know, if we manage to get to Chelsea and it's a penalty shootout, I actually fancy our chances because the thing about Fraser is he fills the goal. He's an imposing figure. Hopefully that would put off one or two. I'm trying to play sort of devil's advocate here, and he does fill the goal. So the big man, I mean, he did well on Tuesday night. Yeah. I mean, he saved a few. So he basically saved one, round the post. So yeah, no, definitely. And again, sorry Fraser for not mentioning you in the review, but yes, you were one of the standouts along with Salisu and Diallo on Tuesday night, without a doubt.
So moving on to the next article. Could Tino Livramento be used as a winger? Ralph Hasenhüttl said, I'm sure he could play this position. On this one, I do actually agree with Ralph. I'll give you that one, Ralph. I agree with you on that one. Don't agree with you about Oriol Romeo at all. But I agree with you on this one.
All the fans do as well. I mean, why has it taken so long for the conversation to come round? And the thing is surely it's always about accommodating your best players in your starting 11. And obviously, if they did move him the right sort of wing side, if you like, then it accommodates. Pedro gets to play in his favourite position at left back, and of course Kyle Walker-Peters then gets to play in his favourite position at right back. The only kind of downside to that for me would be I've actually grown. I'm growing quite fond of El Zanussi, and I actually think on that right hand side, even though he's a lot of the time having to come in field in search of the ball, he's very effective, mate. I mean, again, I actually thought he had a good game, at the F he had last Saturday. So it'd be sad to lose him, but I do think it is a question of Ralph making sure that he can accommodate all his better players. And if this means, Livramento moving to the right-hand side, wing side, so be it, so that our natural two fullbacks get to play in their favourite positions.
Definitely. So moving on, out for £3 million. Fans fear unbelievable talent will be sold to Southampton. Southampton could sign Hull City's Championship ace Keane Lewis Potter in a move echoing West Ham United's move for Jared Bowen.
Yeah, so all I want to say about this, Mark, is it's a strange one because Grant McCann, who's the manager, he was tackled about this possibility of him actually going to Saints, and he refused to answer any questions. So there is that possibility. I have to say he is a hell of a talent from what I've seen from him, and he is destined to move somewhere obviously bigger than Hull. But yeah, keep an eye out for people. So that's basically Keane Lewis Potter, and I wouldn't be too surprised if he ended up at Saints. I think £3 million, even at this stage, Mark, would be a bit of a snip for him.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to the next story. Exceptional talent told to reject Everton or West Ham move is too soon. Calvin Ramsey should ignore interest from Premier League clubs West Ham, Everton and Southampton in order to extend his stay at Aberdeen, Don's legend Joe Harper told the Evening Express.
So this one, I'm going to dismiss this one because he's actually a fullback. Plus, we've got the problem where we're competing against other Premier League teams. And, we'll go back to the bus stop analogy. I would have thought that Everton and West Ham are probably further in the pecking order than we are in the queue. So I'm going to say no to this one, to be honest. I'm not saying that he wouldn't be a good acquisition for us, but I just think that the Keane Potter one is probably more likely because I'm going to say because he's a winger, whereas at the minute, fullbacks wise, I think we've sort of more or less covered that position over the summer, and you're probably if Calvin Ramsey was to come to the club, we might be a little bit top heavy in that department.
Absolutely. Right, and that wraps everything up for that section. So we're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, Two Saints Roundtable preview of Saints versus Wolves. Right, welcome back, everybody. So the Two Saints preview of Saints versus Wolves. Wolves lost the last 4, Mark. So lost 4 out of 5. They've won 1 game, so played 5, won none, drawn none, and lost 4. Drawn 1 and lost 4. Sorry. So looking prime for Saints to get a result. But it's exactly the sort of banana skin we've slipped up on before, isn't it?
Yeah, I wish it was as simple as the way. I love the way you started off that preview section. What I would say is something slightly different. Wolves obviously have only won 1 game. They lost the other 4. But it was only by the odd goal. They've been playing some good stuff. They were one of my tips to go down because Lang, obviously the new manager, he managed Benfica for a short time, but apart from that, you look at his other managerial appointments, that was his first kind of high-profile one, and obviously he's come straight into Wolves, where it's you need an Iberian passport to do anything at the football club.
Well, I know you like these, but I know you're going to be disappointed by this one. Mark Lawrenson has made his prediction. Saints are going to win.
I'm not going to reply to that at all. Thank you for that, Mark, but I'm not going to reply to that. Basically, all I'm going to say is, the issue probably for Wolves is they've been playing good stuff, but kind of like ourselves, they haven't been hitting the back of the net. And I think that's fair to say on Saints as well, because, all right, Sheffield United, okay, fair enough. You're playing lower league opposition as well, I would say, Newport. But in the Premier League, we have been a little bit goal shy, and basically haven't taken chances when they've been presented to us. And there hasn't been that many chances created. I mean, I still say that there's a problem with the wingers, but we won't go there. What I would say is Wolves are in a similar position. They've got talented players. Adama Traore, wastes a lot of chances, but also I would say that Ralph Jimenez, obviously since the fractured skull, he's come back, and it's going to take a while for him probably to get back on the goal scoring charts. He will do, but it's going to take a time. And hopefully, Saints can take advantage of that a little bit, and the fact that, they're a bit goal shy, we're a bit goal shy, and actually come out on Sunday and attack the game, because the 3 points is key. Forget the win. There's a lot less pressure next weekend going into the Chelsea away game.
I just want to say one thing, Mark.
It is a little bit of a free hit.
For me, right, Ralph, start with Adams and Brozier up front. Right, play them as a 2. Start with those 2 up front. If it's not working with Brozier, get Armstrong on second half, or midway through the first, you don't think it's working at all. Okay, go with 2 up front, please. At home, go with Adams and Brozier. Get Walker Peters and Livramento on either flank and just go for it.
Yeah, right? I'm totally 100%. With you on that. Look, my attitude would always be that you play 2 up front, irrespective of whether you're away from home or at home, because it shows you're attacking a tent, and it shows that you're automatically on the front foot. And, it's something that I fundamentally, when I see Ralph play with, say, a striker and an attacking midfielder as the front two, sit there and go, no, two strikers, Ralph,
Exactly,
two strikers.
100%.
No?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I'm going to go. You know what, Mark? Despite everything I've said, I think this is going to be 1-1. I hate to say it.
Right. Well, I'm going for a 3-1 Saints win.
Ooh, he's gone big. Like, go big or go home. So 3-1 for Mark and 1-1 for me. So I think that's a really good place to end the Two Saints Roundtable preview of Saints versus Wolves. Come on, you Reds. So just like to thank everybody for tuning into the pod today. Thank you very much for staying tuned and listening to me and Mark washing on for about an hour and a half or so. Thanks for joining in. We really appreciate it. So all that's left for me to say is my goodbye. So goodbye from me.
Goodbye, everybody. Take care of each other. Thanks for listening, and hopefully you'll listen again next week. Bye for now.
And don't forget the other ways of listening to the podcast, which are these. Just to remind you all, you can contact us via our email address, the Two Saints Podcast Show at outlook.com, for questions or items you'd like to hear in future shows. You can listen to the radio show on Fiesta 95 FM in Southampton and via onlineradiobox.com. Also, the Two Saints Podcast Show is now available via Spotify, SoundCloud, Overcast, Acast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music and Podbean, or via our Facebook page, The Two Saints Show, and our YouTube channel, The Two Saints Podcast Show. There we go. The only thing left to say is join us again next week when the Two Saints go marching in again. Bye for now.
Bye.